This is You the People. Each week, we three Canadians talk about you, the people, your politics, your political system, your insurrections, and yes, you're barely hanging on by a thread, democracy. And with me, as always, Corey Hogan, Stephen Carter. Guys, what's happening?
It's been a while. Our last episode was like a month ago. A few things have happened in the United States since then.
None bigger than a aimless 31-year-old trying to find himself in Brooklyn. Okay, now this is the story. This is the story of a man who gave it his all, who tried to find every strip club he could in Houston and then did, and is now looking for more ground, more pasture, more access, Corey. This is what we need to talk about. This is what America needs to talk about.
So Hardin, for so many years, would stir the pot, and at a certain point, he just decided to eat all of the contents of it and then be traded to Brooklyn.
Okay,
Carter,
seriously, I don't know what we're talking about. What is it? Is this football reference? What is this?
Yeah, we're talking about the Super Bowl, which was last week. Way to go.
Yeah,
thank
you, Carter.
Bringing me along.
Thank you,
Carter. I have
Carter.
no idea what you guys are talking about.
It has been a while since we've recorded an episode of You the People. And while we have been on our mini unplanned hiatus, America has not been doing excellent, Corey. Is that correct?
They're going through some stuff.
Okay.
There's been some troubles, some worries. America, you're scaring the hell out of all of us. January 6th was a trip. Yeah. You start to think that, we're always talking about the world's longest unprotected border. I don't know about that unprotected thing.
Yeah,
I'm feeling so great about it.
Speaking of unprotected things, the unprotected time between someone winning an election and then actually getting to be president. Who thought that shit was a good idea at this point?
Exactly.
Just wait for all the electors to walk from their states all the way to D.C. like this 1800s. Yeah, excellent. Excellent, Carter. Who knew this intervening time would be so horrible? And I think all of us did, is the answer.
Well, I was just surprised to find out that their Congress is as unprotected as our border. It just struck me as a really weird thing. You know, you'd think you'd have, because when Corey and I went there, I don't think Zain, you and I have ever been to DC together because we don't travel.
No. I mean, to be clear, we travel together. It's just I stay at the airport and I miss my flight. I usually miss my flight.
Corey and I were there, and we've wandered through the Congress, and we had to pass through like security checkpoints and stuff like that. These guys didn't have to do any of that. It's pretty amazing.
So what I'm hearing you say is they should have built the wall around Congress.
You know what? It would have been less expensive. And I think they subsequently have built the wall, given the military presence that's there today.
Yeah, I just don't know if Donald Trump's like a photo op channel changer of going to look at a wall and how it can keep people out was exactly the win that he thought it was.
These guys are great.
Total side note, stream of consciousness. Remember when he held the Bible upside down? That's it. There's nothing else. Just wanted you to know that. Yeah. Let's move it on to our headlines, guys. We have got so many headlines to talk about. Let's start here. An article from Vice, and the headline is, "The guy who flew a Confederate flag in the Capitol has predictably surrendered." Excellent. Excellent headline. The gentleman and his son, who were from Delaware. Actually, quite a few rumors on the internet that this individual was from here in Canada. Turns out that was not the case. The individual was from Delaware. Him and his son were bragging to a coworker, I believe, who then ratted them out to the FBI. And he has been arrested at his home in Delaware. I believe in Wilmington. I could be wrong. But Carter, what do you think? The guy with the Confederate flag, which, by the way, many historians are commenting on. This was the first time that a Confederate flag has entered the Capitol, like the symbolic significance of that as well. But your thoughts on the article?
Well, number one, I'm really glad he wasn't from Calgary. That rumor was making us all very angry. Number two, I'm thrilled that ratting out your coworker is still a thing. I'm looking forward to the police state that is the United States coming to a head with neighbors ratting out neighbors. He got caught. They're going to. I'm actually super impressed with the number of arrests that have been made so far. Over 200 people have been arrested, and I'm looking forward to thousands more.
Corey.
Oh, first of all, there are Congress people who take their gun to the floor of the House of Representatives. I am quite sure it's not the first time there's been a Confederate flag in the Capitol. You've probably got entire wings of the Republican Party who use it as drapes and bed sheets in their chambers. The other thing, though, is I couldn't help but notice that this fellow from Delaware, who's his son was also there. His son was named Hunter.
Hunter from Delaware.
Why do people from Delaware call their kids Hunter? Like, what is wrong with this state?
Maybe he's just really pissed off that, he named his kid after Biden's kid.
I'm declaring it right now. Let's find that kid's laptop. What's on it?
Exactly.
What's on his fucking laptop? I want to know. Next article here from the Washington Post. This is just beautiful for so many reasons. The Washington Post article, the $3,000 a month toilet for the Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner Secret Service detail. Subheadline, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner made their Secret Service detail go to extreme lengths to find a bathroom. So, now, Corey, I know you're familiar with this story, but let me add some further context. The Secret Service were not allowed to use any of the bathrooms, any of the multiple bathrooms in Jared and Ivanka's home in Washington, D.C. So instead, on the taxpayers' dime, they had to rent a $3,000 a month studio basement apartment for the exclusive purpose of using the bathroom. Now, the Trump family in bathrooms is just really fascinating. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum, and I could go on about low flow shower heads. We of course have Donald Trump, who's created policy near the end of his presidency about shower heads, and we've talked about very famously early on in the Trump presidency, Melania refused to move in using one of the excuses she didn't want to use the same toilet as former First Lady Michelle Obama. So the history of the Trump family and toilets is quite extensive. But Corey, I'm going to you first. Your thoughts on the $3,000 a month taxpayer-funded Secret Service toilet?
Well, when you divide by two and figure out all of the times they needed to use that toilet, what do you think it is per bathroom break that the American taxpayers are paying?
This is good. This almost like a Nate Silver. Oh,
that was weak.
No,
but, I don't understand why the Secret Service didn't just use the sink like any good.
I don't think
good contractor.
Okay, that's right. Thank you. Like any good contractor. Carter, I could go so many places, but I'll instead just ask you for your reaction.
I mean, I actually have some empathy for the Kushners. I mean, allowing someone to come into, I mean, they only had 6 bathrooms, so they would have had to go down to 5 had they designated one. And, that would have been tragic for them. So I have a real empathy for them that they wanted to keep their 6 bathrooms, for the 2 of them. So, $3,000 a month is a small price to pay compared to all the other expenses the Trumps have forced on the American
Listen, this
people.
is the Trump family. I'm surprised they didn't charge the Secret Service $4,000 to use one of those extra.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they didn't rent it to them themselves.
Yeah, that would actually have been smarter. But as we know, they're not great business people to begin with.
Exactly.
So our next article headline comes to us from The Guardian. Trump refusing to pay Rudy Giuliani's legal fees after falling out.
I'm so glad you chose this one.
Now, of course, this is the headline equivalent of the send later email. I assume this was published back in October. And then someone was just like, fuck it, let's just put it out sometime in mid-January. The most predictable element. I mean, in Trump's defense, Giuliani didn't do a great job. I mean, he was a lot of holes.
This is why real lawyers get retainers.
Exactly.
This is true. Carter, I mean, this is a guy who brought a witness who had claimed she had seen voter malpractice, but is, of course, clearly drunk at the hearing. This is, of course, the same Rudy Giuliani who was out in a parking lot yelling at reporters that they were blind and crazy. That, of course, was just before he was at Four Seasons Total Landscaping hosting a press conference. Let us never forget it. So it kind of seems fair he's not getting paid, but Carter, your reaction?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you lose 60%, 60 cases in a row. There's a degree of, embarrassment that maybe you shouldn't even be bothering to to build a client. I mean, that was pretty pathetic. It's predictable, though. Donald Trump, before in 2016, there were a tremendous number of stories about how he just didn't pay his contractors. People knew this about him, and they called him a shrewd businessman. So he still is a shrewd businessman. And Rudy Giuliani is an idiot. So, it worked out perfectly.
Corey.
Rudy gets it. He's seen that documentary Game of Thrones. He knows these things happen. He's a big boy. He'll figure it out.
Just thankful to be breathing for another day.
Yeah. Okay. Next headline comes up. I don't even know what you meant by that. Just random buzzwords that you just throw in there. Next headline from ABC. Jacob Chansley, this is the guy with the Viking helmet, just to get you a visual reference in your head, who had stormed the Capitol, makes first court appearance, indicates he's on a hunger strike. The extended headline says his mom says he hasn't eaten since Friday because the detention facility won't feed him all organic food. Incredible. Corey.
These guys are so soft. I can't believe that this was the revolution. A bunch of people in face paint who are then demanding special privilege because they can't get an organic meal. Where the fuck have they been? They should watch. I don't know. They should talk to anybody about the criminal justice system. This is just totally unbelievable to me. Listen, if he wants to be the poster child for the revolution, I say have at it, because that's fucking funny, and you're not going to scare anybody like that. Next time you storm the Capitol, Nancy Pelosi's going to come out and slap you.
Yep. And Carter, as a fan of the overpriced food movement, you just seem like someone like that. What do you think?
Is this revolution vegan? Is it vegan? Is this the revolution for veganism? I'm a little confused. I mean, it's pathetic. It's wonderful. I mean, the layers of the story, the layers of Trumpism just kind of keep giving, don't they? I couldn't believe it when he was on a hunger strike because he wouldn't need anything but organics.
Yeah, I mean, it was principled, right? Just like Gandhi and some of the other more famous hunger strikes, it was for a just cause, which was his stomach and his physique.
About being tone deaf to the plight of the most imprisoned population in the world.
No,
right?
I mean, that's right. He didn't want to lose
totally tone deaf.
Well, he didn't want to lose his tone. His physical stature, he didn't want to lose it. Carter, this is exactly what we're talking about. Okay, this was not the intention, but we're keeping it on the food item because this one's from Business Insider. Taco Bell potatoes will return to menu after months of protests from fans. The sub-headline here, the Global Chief Food Innovation Officer, Liz Matthews, said she felt like she heard from, quote, everybody in the entire country complaining about the potatoes' disappearance in this trying time. Fantastic. I mean, Taco Bell, Carter, more food, more tone deafness. What do you think?
Is this the fries supreme with the cheese sauce and the sour cream?
From what I can read, it's just potatoes. I mean, I feel like America is just that basic potatoes, right?
I have eaten the fries supreme, but that's all I know.
Okay. Corey, do you have any food related comments?
It was a staple of Taco Bell. You could choose to get potatoes in some of your things. It filled things out. The Global Chief Food Innovation Officer apparently flew too close to the sun and had to move back to some of these tried, tested, and true staples, I suppose. But you know what? It's never too late to do the right thing. Good for Taco Bell.
I'm gonna end our headlines here from a headline in Wired. And Corey, I want your reaction to this first. An absurdly basic bug let anyone grab all of Parler's data before it shut down. Ultimately, the free speech social network also allowed unlimited access to every post, image, and video. There's a big detail around how this particular hack was done. Many people on Reddit and other forums were saying it was a very straightforward bug that many were surprised that Parler didn't capture. A fiery death for a fiery platform in some ways. What do you think, Corey?
Well, this is not an uncommon mistake to make when you're a web developer. There were a few things that were all they shouldn't have happened, but they're fairly common. Things like sequential UUIDs, they're called, which are just auto-generated by the system. It looks like they use kind of off-the-shelf platforms, and you get what you pay for. Like Parler was a pretty Mickey Mouse operation when you get down to it, and it's not hard to look like Twitter, but a number of the security protocols in place and the thought that goes into it, that actually takes, there's a reason there's like thousands of people who work for Twitter, and it's not just a bunch of random, rednecks who think they can make a better social media network. So, maybe, just maybe, hear me out here. Maybe an organization that comes out of nowhere, that's made by a bunch of clowns, isn't an organization you want to give your social security number to and then plot a coup over. Just maybe. Maybe this is not the town square in which to have this conversation. But, I think this is ultimately the thing that has saved America time and time again. These people are so fucking self-destructive. It's so stupid. Like, there's the old adage about give somebody enough rope and they'll hang themselves. We've given them enough rope, and they've put a tourniquet around their balls for all of us to see and laugh at. Like this is just the most clownish operation. I don't even mean Parler. I mean all of it. Y'all are just next level.
Carter.
Freedom of speech has been taken to mean so many different things. But it's not, freedom of speech does not necessarily mean freedom from responsibility from that speech. Even if you're allowed to say something, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be held accountable for it. And, if you said something, as a Looney Tune in the old town square, your town population will judge you. And here we have the citizens of the world being able to judge these guys. And it's about time, because hiding behind anonymity and hiding on a platform that you think is safe, that's not free speech. Free speech is saying something and then being held accountable for it. You get the opportunity to look like an idiot, as evidenced by this podcast. So there you go.
We'll leave the headlines there and move it on to our first segment. You have the record. Guys, he has gone back to back, not just one impeachment, but two in a row. Donald Trump, just incredible. Just round of applause from all of us on this podcast to Donald Trump for going back to back. Corey, Donald Trump has now been given his second impeachment from Congress. I'm going to start with you first. I mean, there's many details around this, right? Democrats voting as a bloc. Republicans, certainly not, but having 10 of them show up to the party and vote for impeachment for Donald Trump, including the third highest ranking Republican, Liz Cheney, of the Cheney dynasty in the Republican Party. Corey, why was Trump's second impeachment such a big deal in your mind? Or was it?
I'm not sure it was. It's not going to result in him leaving office. Insofar as I think it's noteworthy, it's that it is a moment where you're starting to see the Republican Party walk slowly out of the room backwards from him. Now, let's not throw a parade and congratulate them. Like 10 Republican members of the House is 5% of their conference. It's not a lot of people in the grand scheme of things, but it's a hell of a lot more than voted for impeachment in the first impeachment. It's That's pretty amazing.
Because it was 0 in the first one, just to be clear. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing when you have a president who has enough impeachments that you can actually start looking for trends within them. That's really stellar. But it is noteworthy, as you said, that Liz Cheney was one of them. She's the third highest ranking member of the Republican Party in the House. And it is noteworthy that that there was so much chatter about potentially being more, and that there was perhaps still just a resistance or an anxiety about the blowback that other Republicans might get. Even fear for their life was something that was being referenced. But here, if you want to be laudatory to the 10 that did come up, and it's pretty easy to say, like, well, fucking congratulations for doing the most obvious thing in the world. But the Republican Party base, it's only about 13% to 16%, depends on the poll, who support impeachment. And they did it anyways. And when you've got something where like 80% of your base wants you to do one thing and you do the opposite, that takes some guts. So I think it is important. I think it is noteworthy. It's not what I would have hoped for, but it's it's more than I thought would happen. Nonetheless, I actually thought none or only one or two Republicans would end up voting for impeachment.
The Liz Cheney one is interesting because she's not in what you'd call like a traditional swing constituency, right? So both compounded with the fact that third highest ranking Republican, alongside the fact that I think she's like plus 42 Trump district, like it's red, like it is the base. So she in particular was doing something against probably her constituents' wishes at a quite, the 9 people that are in Wyoming, at quite a significant clip. Carter, Trump impeachment, round 2, big deal or no?
I think the deal has yet to be decided. I mean, obviously,
it's just Congress right now, just to be clear, right? It has not hit the trial that you'd see, and it's not hit the Senate. Yeah.
Right.
Just the House. Congress is...
Sorry, just the House.
We run an American podcast, so maybe we should get some of this one-on-one stuff right.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're in the middle of the process, as I said, smart Alex, both of you. So I don't know how big it is. Mitch McConnell signaling that he is prepared to consider the charges instead of just dismissing them out of hand. Let's be clear, dismissing this kind of out of hand might be the more wise play for the Republicans, because just getting rid of this, just dropping it off the agenda, he's going to be out of office. But there is another consequence that I think that Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham might find themselves far more interested in, and that is if they find the president guilty of the charges brought by the House, they can impose a punishment upon him of not being able to seek any federal office. And I think that it's safe to say that relying on Don Jr. To pick up the reins from his father is probably their best bet to be rid of the Trump. They may suffer a short-term consequence of the anger, but ultimately they get to keep their party. And right now their party is not their own any longer. They danced with this devil, and they lost a significant amount of what they were defined as. Sure, they got their tax cuts, but they gave away their party of law and order. They gave away their party that was a responsible governor. All of these things are gone now, and in its place are QAnon and Donald Trump. So, maybe it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense to convict. We've never had a president convicted. Certainly it would be interesting to see a president convicted after he's left office. That would be quite spectacular, and I will be watching it closely as it unfolds over the coming weeks.
Corey, I want to pick up on this, what Carter mentioned. McConnell's tone has clearly changed. Even McCarthy's tone, House Minority Leader, who did not vote with his Republican colleagues, but did introduce a motion for censure instead, right, of impeachment, tried to have this middle ground. So both of them, like McCarthy and McConnell, who's now said, I'm open to it, much more open. What do you kind of make of that? Do you feel like this is strategery for a post-Trump world? Do you feel like this is just trying to cool the temperatures for the current sort of insurrection? What do you kind of make, and what are you kind of thinking their thinking might be?
Well, I think it's a little bit of business and it's a little bit of personal in the case of McConnell. By all accounts, Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell have not spoken since Mitch McConnell decided to declare Joe Biden. Well, declare makes it sound like it was his choice, but started to refer to Joe Biden as president-elect after the Electoral College confirmed that. And that's not surprising. It's Donald Trump. He's a bit of a child. But, Mitch McConnell has been in the Senate for a very, very long time. And I'm sure that felt to him and meant something to him quite different than it meant to one of these, say, freshman QAnon-style Republican members of the Republican conference. So I don't think he liked it. I think he's pissed off about it. I don't think he thinks this is how politics should be done. I think he felt threatened. I think he felt that the Senate was run through. I'm sure he hated that the Senate was, literally had people at the dais who had stormed it. And he's also, he actually called Joe Biden president-elect back in December. He's a survivor. He's a canny guy. He understands the way the wind is blowing. And it's not so much that he thinks this is going to be popular with Republicans, but he doesn't think that this party has a future if they stay so closely tied to Donald Trump. If you want evidence of that, you got it with the Georgia Senate election, the runoff there. Donald Trump is poison to moderates. And if the Republican Party can't manage to hold 2 Senate seats in Georgia, everything's in play. These last couple of Senate cycles have been pretty good for the Republicans in terms of what seats come up, who's on defense, who's on offense. That is not the case in 2022. 2022 could be a bloodbath for the Republicans. It's sort of, if it recedes to the mean, it's going to be good for the Democrats. If the Democrats have a blowout because Donald Trump is still the ballot question and it's 2 years later we're still talking about Donald Trump, I mean, it's just like it will be very hard for the Republicans to come back to that in 24, 26. You start to bake things in the way the Democrats have been fighting against for the last bit.
Hold that thought on 22, Corey. That's an interesting notion. I want to talk about that in a second with you as well, Carter. But same question to you, Carter. Tone shift by McConnell specifically. What do you think? Do you agree with Corey's analysis? A bit of personal, a bit of business?
Yeah, I mean, he's been very canny the way that he's used the president to achieve his ends, right? People will no doubt note that McConnell's primary goal was to get the courts, and he certainly did get the courts. He was able to ram through as many nominations as anybody I think ever has in a 4-year period. You compared that to Paul Ryan, whose primary goal was to get the tax cuts, and he was able to get that. The Republicans that used Donald Trump to achieve their own ends, I think were happy until it became untenable. And that's where McConnell is looking at the potential future value of Donald Trump and saying, you know what, that doesn't matter as much to me anymore. That future value is certainly less. And if all the nominations for the House of for the House still have to go through the Trump gauntlet, I think he's looking at the House and saying these aren't my people. Corey pointed to the Senate elections in 2022. Those are super important, obviously, because McConnell's not likely to regain the Senate in 2022. But the House certainly would be in play, but it's not his Republican Party. All of a sudden it's Donald Trump's Republican Party that's electing Marjorie Taylor out of Florida, who's a full-on conspiracy theorist who believes in the QAnon stories, who probably would have stormed the pizzeria where Pizzagate was supposed to be taking place. I mean, all of this is lunacy to him, and I'm sure that he is a little disappointed that the reins got away from him.
Carter, I didn't catch you on this because I didn't ask, but Corey offered what he thought about the 10 Republicans standing out for you. Were you pleasantly surprised by 10 or surprised that there weren't more than 10?
I'm happy with 10. I would have expected 20 or 30, but when you consider the fact that 140 plus voted after the Congress had been stormed, voted to reject the results from Pennsylvania? Fuck them. Just fuck them. That's, I don't even know what to do with that. So yeah, I don't think you have a large bench of reasonable human beings to go to expect to get, 10s and 20s and 30s of Republicans doing the right thing.
Corey, I want to shift it over to Trump and his reaction to all this. And it wasn't as quick or as in real time as we'd expect because he doesn't have a Twitter account anymore. He can't access it. And I think Youth sent us a text the other day being like, the internet seems quiet with Trump. So I'm kind of curious what you made of the reactions we're getting from Trump, which we had one 270 some character statement that he sent alongside
old habits die hard.
Yeah, no kidding. Alongside a hostage video that he sent to us about not encouraging more, ensuring that violence is not conducted in his name. What did you kind of make of Trump's reaction and even some of the reporting about Trump in the midst of this?
Well, I mean, he's a first class shitheel. Let's be clear about that. And when you hear some of the reporting about him seeming gleeful about the fact that the Capitol is stormed at first, and not talking to Mike Pence and not taking calls from anybody who might be able to say how important it is that he gets his people to step down. This is not the behavior of a man who deserves a pass or the benefit of the doubt when we start talking about things like impeachment. Let's be super clear about what happened here. He invited a mob to Washington. He incited that mob to go to the Capitol. That mob then stormed the Capitol. This is not exactly, you don't have to sit there and do kind of beautiful mind, crazy conjectures between different things here.
Yeah, right.
This is a pretty direct line from the President of the United States to the Capitol has insurgents who have military-style zip ties that seem to be looking around for people to get, literally building gallows on the front steps. So, his reaction was muted, but it's in part because I think he knows how out on a limb he is, and very few people are around him now. We didn't even mention, so much has happened since we last talked, but cabinet ministers have resigned.
Yep.
Senior staff have resigned. By some senior staff, the brave men and women that they are, have just decided to go on vacation until the end of Trump's term. And so he lacks the ability to get his message out there. So part of it, it may feel like he's being sheepish, but the guy, we're so used to hearing every thought in his head, and we can't anymore. A friend of mine actually mentioned, and he's totally right, and I do too. It's like, I have this Pavlovian response to political news in the United States now. My first reaction is to go to Donald Trump's Twitter account and see what crazy thing he's going to tweet about it. Mm-hmm. That's gone. So while it may seem like he's cowed and quiet, the reality is we took away his megaphone. The one piece of his infrastructure that he's not using that does baffle me a bit, and I'll throw it on the table and then stop talking here, is you all know that I've been on the Donald Trump email accounts.
Yeah.
They were sending an email every 2 hours all the way through the election, all the way through December, January 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On January 6th, when this went down, no more emails. As soon as that happened, there have been no Donald Trump emails since. Not one. There's been one from the RNC, which did not even mention Donald Trump, and that is it. That is all the email that's come through since that moment.
That's interesting. Carter, what do you make of the Trump reaction?
Well, the Trump reaction is like watching a toddler that no longer has access to their megaphone, right?
Don't give toddlers megaphones. Is that what you did in your house or what?
Oh, God. And we gave him drums and stuff, too. It was tragic. Very, very loud. I think he went through a number of different behaviors, right? So he did as Corey mentioned, he went through the pre-behavior, right? Of inviting the mob to the Capitol and inciting them and then encouraging them to storm the building. Then he had his during behavior. And this is what I think, maybe we haven't spoken about enough, is that, people were begging him to intervene. His vice president was being threatened with being hung. That's a rather significant situation. One would think that you'd use your Twitter account or you'd use your voice to save the sycophant that's put himself beside you for the last 4 years. And then you have the post behavior. And the post behavior was, I think, really interesting because the two tweets that occurred after the 12-hour kind of suspension on Twitter were pretty benign, as Trump goes. And he was actually trying to not lose access to these accounts. And then boom, he lost them. And now it's been, rather ridiculous since, because for someone to say that he's lost the ability to speak to the American people when all he needs to do is walk into the briefing room. That's the post behavior that he needs to do. He can also write statements. We've actually started seeing Twitter-length statements coming out of the White House today and yesterday. That's pretty amazing. He can say whatever he wants still, but there's an addiction style to social media, right? The immediate feedback, the seeing yourself trend, the attack, the love that comes from a specific tweet or a specific post on social media. And it is an addiction. And I have no doubt that he's going through a significant withdrawal and a mental addiction issue as he's not able to play on that platform.
You know what? You brought up Mike Pence. I want to talk about that. I could talk about social media, but I'll talk about Pence because Trump did try to leverage Pence a bit, even recently, right? By calling him a pussy, he pretty much outright tried to get Pence to help him in his overthrow of the government. What do you make? And Corey, maybe I'll stick with you on this for a sec, or I'll start with you on this. What do you make of Pence and his strategy right now? He's always been able to walk this fine line, and I'm surprised he's been able to do it for so long. He only has 5 more days to do it, but the reporting now is that Pence has reached his limit with Trump. You know, it wasn't a pretty encounter between the two. What are you thinking? What are you doing if you're Pence right now?
Just keeping your head down. You know, you don't want to be part of this guy's total immolation. He made comments that were seen, I mean, in the kind of reduced environment that we're in, but we're seen as quite statesmanlike when the House and the Senate reconvened to count votes for the Electoral College. And since then, I think, you know, it's really like he's, you know, you just don't want the flames to jump from one guy. Listen, he's already tarred with the smell of Donald Trump. It's not a good smell. Yeah. But, you know, he at this point wants to keep his options open. This is probably the end of Pence's political career too. But insofar as there's a chance that it's not, it's probably that he has some daylight from this man. Because as we've seen, like when you're in Donald Trump's, like when Donald Trump owns you the way he owned Donald Trump, there's only one way for it to go. You go Donald Trump's way. Otherwise, he burns you, right? Like in the most severe way possible. He basically riled up a crowd to go after Mike Pence because Mike Pence wasn't willing to circumvent the Constitution. I mean, the whole thing is crazy when you sit down and think about it. And, you know, Mike Pence, a guy who won't even have a meal with somebody who's not his wife. I'm not sure Donald Trump going with this very presidential quote of, you can either go down in history as a patriot or you can go down in history as a pussy. I'm not really sure that was the line for our man Mike.
Like the alliteration.
Yeah, I mean, listen, no one ever said that Donald Trump didn't have a way with a phrase, but yeah, I can't imagine for the life of me that Mike Pence at that moment would be particularly receptive to that approach.
Those are the two doors we give Steve in every episode, and he always chooses the latter. Carter, what do you make of what you're seeing right now from Trump and the Pence relationship?
Well, I mean, I think that Pence is trying to figure out his future, right? Like Walter Mondale was Jimmy Carter's vice president. Jimmy Carter lost, and Walter Mondale rose from the ashes to lose again in 1984 to Ronald Reagan. You know, Dan Quayle was there for H.W. Bush. And, you know, he kind of disappeared from our collective mindset. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of speaking gigs for Dan Quayle any longer. I mean, I imagine that what Mike Pence is going to have to do is create his own documentary called An Inconsistent Lie and, you know, hope that makes some money because, you know, that's basically where...
Are you writing material now to parody other vice presidents? Just to let you know.
That was good stuff.
I did catch the inconvenient truth, the inconsistent lie. Please go ahead, Stephen Carter.
This was good stuff, and our audience is going to get that. You guys didn't get it, but our audience loves it.
I literally got it and explained to the audience.
Okay. Anyways, my point is that
we should also explain what Congress is. Clearly, go ahead.
A one-term vice president normally wants to come back and grab the brass ring in the next round. Is anybody talking about Mike Pence coming back? I mean, I think Mike Pence's future is to talk to evangelical Christians for a small speaker fee on Sundays. And that's his future because I don't think he's got electoral politics in his future any longer. He's been destroyed by Donald Trump.
Carter, we don't call it a small speaker fee. It's called a modest speaker fee, right? It's just classier that way.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of how short he is. My bad.
Okay, there's three things I want to quickly run by before we wrap up this segment. The first one's a yes or no answer for you guys. Corey, yes or no? Does Donald Trump pardon himself in the next 5 days?
I think no. At this point, no. He's just in so much legal jeopardy to begin with. I know he wants to. There was certainly a lot of reporting that he was openly discussing it, but at this point, that would probably seal his conviction.
Carter,
so,
do you agree?
Yeah, I think that the answer is no. And part of the rationale...
I'd like to change my answer to yes, Zane.
I knew that was going to happen.
Part of the rationale appears to be that he seems to be opening himself up to civil litigation if he pardons himself from criminal litigation.
How fun. Here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about two things to end off. Because, Carter, you've brought up Pence and no one's talking about Pence in 24. They're talking about Trump in 24. And I want to talk about Trump in 22 before we do that. But one final thing. Let's talk about Biden's first 100 days and what an impeachment trial kind of does to that. Does that blow a hole in it in some way, shape, or form, even as a distraction? Like tonight, as we record on Thursday evening, he announced that $1.9 trillion plan that he had for the COVID response and stimulus, including everything from direct checks to people of $2,000 in addition to the $600. He talked about rent relief, the states. He's at $350 billion parked for the states. I think minimum wage, a bump up to that to $15 at the federal minimum wage. So a bunch of tools in that. But the 100 days, in some ways, does this impeachment trial blow a hole in it? Corey, what do you think?
Yeah, of course it does. Everything you just mentioned would be big news, but we didn't even get to it until minute 40 in this podcast because we wanted to talk about shit that happened a week ago because that stuff is so significant. Now, if that impeachment trial takes all of the oxygen, even if he does these things, he's not going to get the political capital that he can then reinvest and continue to push his agenda forward, right? Like, I'm not even saying it will be unpopular. I'm saying it will be lost and he doesn't get to push his advantage further.
Carter, do you agree with that? Like, and what would you be advising as a tag on? What would you be advising to Biden, knowing that there is this, meteor of whatever size that's going to blow into his first 100 days?
Well, I don't know that the first 100 days has the same meaning that it might have had without winning those 2 seats in Georgia. By having the House and the Senate, Biden's got more time. Now, he still has to push things through in a hurry. 2022 comes upon us very, very quickly, but he doesn't have to necessarily go in the next 100 days. He has a bit longer, and maybe he even gets a full year. Because Lord knows, I think Americans are aching for a more reasonable style of government. So maybe he's got a little bit longer, maybe not a full year, maybe like a 200-day cycle, and maybe that's the way he needs to start looking at it. But also keep in mind, I don't think this is going to be a long Senate trial. I think that this is going to be a relatively short Senate trial, a few days at most, because what are you going to do? I mean, the evidence is pretty well known. And if you're not going to win, then call the question and get it over with.
What do you think is going to end up happening? Give me your, do you think he gets convicted?
Oh God. I mean, I can't separate my desire from my, ability to reason on this. I want him to be convicted so badly because I like that story better. But I suspect that ultimately, getting to 67 senators is going to be a pretty high bar, and it's going to be pretty hard to do.
Corey, do you think he gets convicted?
It's too soon to say. It depends on what happens over the next couple of days. If the inauguration is a total shit show, if there's more violence, I think the odds increase. If he pardons himself, I think the odds increase. If there is a crack in this hegemony of the Republican Party where the Republican voters right now are still solidly behind Donald Trump, then yes, absolutely. I think he gets convicted. I think if you could somehow do a secret ballot of all of the senators, he would be removed. I don't think that they're particularly fond of him, and I think the Republicans in the Senate, for all of their faults, which are ample, are more likely to see this as a great assault upon the nation. And if you just look at even the counting of the electoral votes, what you had in the Senate was 6 people decide. They were the seditious 6, we were all calling them. 6 people decide not to count the electoral votes. That means there were like 45 Republican senators who said either through their actions or through their absence of actions, like, no, go and count those votes. And if you look at that ratio and you compare it to the ratio in the House, and you look at how many people voted for impeachment in the House, and you look at maybe how many people, if you want to extrapolate out, I mean, you might be naturally at 60 to 65 already, and it wouldn't take very much to push it over the edge. But it will probably still take something. Like, if nothing happens over the next bit, Donald Trump may survive, but it will be by, it won't exactly be a glorious exit for the man.
I want to talk about very quickly future prospects for Trump. Like, in the last 4 years have effectively been Trump is the Republican Party. I see a scenario where it could be Trump versus the Republican Party. Do you feel like in 22, and Carter, I'll start with you, that we could see a Trump Trump candidates running in primaries, trying to outstage the Republican Party as it tries to rebuild itself? What do you kind of see as the future of the Trump vehicle? Let's not project 4 years. Let's just only do 2 to what the next couple of years in the midterms could look like.
There's no doubt that there's going to be Trump candidates seeking the primary in the primaries for the Republicans, and those candidates I think will do very well, especially with Donald Trump continuing to be a mouthpiece. I think that American news networks are so broken that they're not going to be able to move away from it, and they're going to continue to push and promote the conspiracy, even if they're trying, like the conspiracies and other Trump issues, even if they're trying not to. It has been a remarkable few days. The number of QAnon accounts and things like that have been purged are staggering. But I still think that these narratives are going to be all over Facebook, and even if they're not, their absence will be the campaign of choice in 2 years. And the Republican Party is going to be battling itself because there aren't many moderates left. Not right now.
Corey, what do you see in 22? I'm not going to make you guys strategize for Trump, so I'm asking this question very carefully as to what do you think will happen between now and 2022, whether that's Trump-sponsored candidates, Trumpism kind of growing in that sense. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they'll give it an old college try. There will be other people who come forward and become known names within this quote-unquote movement. You know, Trump is the natural extension of a lot of the Tea Party madness that we saw earlier. Arguably, the trail goes way further back than that. But you asked if it was Trump versus the Republican Party or not. I don't know what the Republican Party is anymore. When I was a kid, back when food tasted better and people respected their elders, all that crap, right? But, you know, the Republican Party was this party of small government, of moral government, religious government, military alliances, projecting American power, free trade. Is Donald Trump any of those things? Is the Republican Party today any of those things? The only thing that they seem to be the party of right now is low taxes. It's not even small government. It's low taxes. And it just seems like a bit of a ideologically bankrupt movement right now. And that's... So in a way, like, I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know what the Republican Party is anymore. Like, by any conventional definition that I sort of thought about in the past, it's always been Trump versus the Republican Party. He's always pushed them outside of what have been their traditional areas. But maybe now it just is the Republican Party. Maybe it's a different thing now.
We're going to leave that segment there and move it on to our next segment. You speak to no one. Guys, we are 6 days away from Joe Biden's inauguration in D.C., and not a lot of people are going to be there. 20,000 National Guard have moved into the Capitol. The Capitol is a fortress right now with security all over. They're telling people that if you try to come into D.C. checking in your guns, you will be sent back. That is not allowed. They're telling people to stay at home. Security has increased from all aspects. Airbnb has canceled listings all over DC and the Virginia region for those coming in. This is going to be a very different inauguration. And Carter, maybe I want to start with you. What does an inauguration kind of mean to you as a president? What is the objectives of an inauguration speech? And how do you, maybe I'll double barrel the question, how do you as Joe Biden kind of speak to this moment? And I mean moments both in the moment we live in, but also the fact that the aesthetics and the makeup of this inauguration is going to look very different too. What advice would you have for him as he kind of speaks to the American populace in this moment?
Americans are all about pomp and circumstance, right? The pageantry means almost as much to them as the actual content. So when they see their bunting and their American flags and all of these things that maybe Canadians think are a bit over the top, they show an American pride, right? Like they're proud of those symbols, and the symbols of inauguration are one of the great things that they're very proud of. I mean, this can be a very simple ceremony. Ronald Reagan was in his second inauguration was held indoors at the White House, as I recall. So this doesn't have to be this pomp and circumstance, but Joe Biden wants it to be the pomp and circumstance because he needs to signal a peaceful change of power, and B, a return to normalcy. So those are what he's going to signal. And this is, for me, I tend to remember the visuals of the election night, right? When the Obama family walked out and they'd won in 2008. I remember that very well. But the inauguration is something that is spectacular, and to see it surrounded by troops, much as one might expect in a militaristic society, is very, very different visually. So it almost doesn't matter what Biden says. This inauguration isn't going to be normal. The words he says, maybe, but the visuals around him are going to be deeply abnormal. And I'm concerned that people are going to pick up on that and say, you know what, this militarism, it's designed to push us down. And the threat of further violence, the threat of other soft targets being targeted. No one's going to target the United States Capitol on Inauguration Day. It's going to be some other soft target that, you know, the United States has turned into a very violent society, and it makes me very worried.
Carter, I'm going to give you a shot at this because you introduced this. You said his words are going to be very normal. Should they be normal? Given the circumstance, should they be different, whether in tone or tenor or length or delivery, whatever mechanisms you have, should these words for this time be different?
I think the risk of doing them differently is that you're going to risk reaction, right? By doing them normally, you know, you're basically moving forward and moving past the situation as it currently is. I mean, obviously it's not normal. Obviously this isn't a thing that anybody's seen happen before, but you don't want to draw out the abnormality of this. You just want to have that moment of moving past it so that you can resume your normal lives. People are angry. It's not just about Trump. It's not just about the economy. It's about COVID. It's everything all added up together. There's a higher level of anger, and you need to be as normal as possible, I think, to move past that anger.
Corey, same question to you. I'll start at the top. What does the kind of inauguration sort of mean from your perspective? And then the second part of that question I asked Stephen was really about, like, what would you suggest for Biden heading into this one with how different it's going to be? And maybe if you want to pick up on that second part regarding, you know, do you pretend like it's just another normal inauguration as part of that return to normalcy, or do your words have to change? So those two questions for you, whichever order you want to handle them in.
Yeah, custom's a very powerful thing. Tradition's a very powerful thing. It can also be very powerful to break with tradition or custom if you're trying to make a point. This is not a blinding insight. This goes way back. You know, Napoleon crowned himself, you know, and what did that say? Because the convention was to be crowned. And as mentioned, inaugurations have not always taken this big dramatic show. But I think, as I talked about when we were talking about the conventions, the political conventions during these times of COVID, it is often a mistake to try to do something, to try to bring out a tradition or a convention that you cannot, right? Because it just makes the thing feel hollow or sad or like an imitation, and it really reinforces the, the sorrow of it all in a case like this, right? You won't have crowds of people. You'll have crowds of military men and women. And just to put this in context for you here, you know, Trump, we're now used to huge inaugurations filling the entire mall here, but there will be more police and National Guards people combined at Biden's inauguration than there were people, period, at Lincoln's second inauguration. You know, and there was tens and tens of thousands of people at that. This is going to be a deeply militarized setting, one absolutely without precedent. I mentioned Lincoln because his second inauguration happened during the Civil fucking War. The Civil War was occurring in Virginia, which I don't know if you've been to Washington, D.C.
Not far.
Not so far. And so, like the surrealness of this all is almost next level. And it will be interesting to see how they stage manage that and keep the troops from being in all of the big shots. But it's almost impossible when you're talking about 21,000 guardsmen, a Capitol Police force of 20,000 people. It just doesn't seem realistic to me. So in some ways, I think my advice to Joe Biden, and it's too late, like whatever they're going to do, is to own the weirdness of the moment and to do something different. We tell ourselves that the whole purpose of the inauguration is to highlight the peaceful transition of power. Well, guess what? You didn't have one this time. So maybe you should own that weirdness. Maybe it's time for a very, very serious, very different speech than we've seen in times past.
You bring up a question that I don't know if it's either brilliant or it's the dumbest question you're going to hear. So just tell me, as you guys bluntly do, but in your mind, is an impeachment speech supposed to be temporal or evergreen? Because often
inauguration speech.
Sorry.
Impeachment speeches last forever, Zane.
Sorry, I'm thinking about it right now. Yeah, inauguration speech.
Yeah.
Temporal or evergreen in your mind? Because I'm thinking about it in the sense of what Corey just said, which is you own the weirdness, but often we consume these inauguration speeches in, years ahead. They're in history books, they're in textbooks, they're clips that are archived. So by owning the weirdness, are you doing a disservice to history in some ways? I wish I'd phrased it better, but I'm just trying to think of it as Corey says it. Carter, maybe you want to jump in first.
Yeah, I mean, the State of the Union is the representation of the moment in time. The inauguration address, the inaugural, is supposed to be your moment in history, right? And there are a few speeches that you give in the course of your presidency that are define the moment in history. But the State of the Union is the one that's the moment in time. This isn't a State of the Union. This is supposed to be much bigger than just the moment. And it is going to be very difficult to remove this speech from the moment, given the time that we're currently in.
I just looked it up. There's no such thing as an impeachment speech, but now I fucking want one. I really, really want the person to be sitting in like a Saddam Hussein-style jail cell where they have to plead their case. Corey, inauguration speech, the evergreen versus the temporal sort of nature of it. How do you kind of reconcile the two?
Well, it's an interesting question because an awful lot of inauguration speeches they're rarely big laundry lists. They tend to be the bromides that you hear on the political campaign. Like we will be, Donald Trump ended his inauguration with, and yes, we will be great again, like, cause we're going to make America blank again was the kind of the format. So they all sort of shoot for poetry, I guess is my point. Carter's exactly right. The State of the Union is the laundry list. And there's such a history of inaugurals, especially, second inaugurals, I think. Mm-hmm. But the reality is the ones that we really do remember do actually tend to be fairly rooted in the moment that they're in because they're addressing that moment. They're not so unmoored that you could say like, well, that's a speech that could have been given in 1864 or 1964. Like that doesn't happen. So it's a bit of a balance. It's got to talk to the feelings of the moment. The reason we look at them and we kind of put them on this pedestal is this is somebody who's been just elected by all of America to speak for all of America. And it's not unreasonable to say this is the voice of America at this particular moment. And just to circle back to my point, America's pretty fucked up right now. And maybe the speech needs to reflect that.
That's interesting. So when you say reflect that, explain that to me. Do you mean, does it need to lean in and acknowledge how fucked up, or does it need to reflect, quite literally contrast in a way that ultimately says, it might be fucked up, but we don't have to be? Like, I'm just trying to understand, like, is it...
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. It can't be just sort of fetishizing the problem. Like,
problem definition.
God, what are we going to do? Yeah. America, guy, oof. What?
That's what an impeachment speech is for.
Yeah, that's what an impeachment speech is for. No, maybe it needs to just address this moment, head on to the point of discomfort and say, here's how we get out of it. So,
Carter, two questions to end off here then. What is one thing that you would definitely suggest Joe Biden not do heading into this speech that he's going to be giving on Wednesday? You can try to overcompensate when you feel like there should be more people there, right? We've seen politicians do that. When there's perhaps a lack of audience, they overcompensate, get louder, and it doesn't translate well on TV. They sometimes, try to hush it down as they're intimate, which also sometimes doesn't play well. So from like the staging and the tone perspective, everything on the list that is an inauguration. Corey even brought up camera angles for the troops and trying to get that eliminated as much as you can. What's like a one top thing for you that cannot happen or be said by Joe Biden next Wednesday?
He can't open with a joke.
Okay.
No, I mean, and the other thing is emotions, right? You can't get overly emotional in this. This is
he can't, you're saying?
He can't. He's got to be more matter of fact. Like you could get really angry. You could get really sad, about the state of American democracy. But I think he's got to take a very level tone. I don't want to see yelling Joe. Like, I don't want to see Angry Joe today. I want to see thoughtful, reflective Joe, who's bringing us a vision for our future that's going to get us out of this situation which we're mired. Nothing funny, nothing overly angry. Just bring me just the facts, Joe, just the facts.
Corey, what's one thing Biden can't do?
He cannot stuff a bunch of hard taffy in his mouth just before he goes on stage.
Fucking great. Like, great, insightful answers. Thank you.
Very good. I hadn't thought of that, Corey. That's really good.
I see what you're doing.
What
Taking the question way too literally. Let me ask you this then, Corey. What are you going to be looking for in that speech? Either from, I'll ask it probably the same question a different way. From the stagecraft, from the language, from the visuals. What is one thing you'll actually be cluing in on as an indicator of something?
Well, I'm going to look at who's there. I suspect Pence will be there. We know Donald Trump will not be there. I want to see where they position former presidents. I want to see the body language between the former presidents and the incoming president. I want to understand the dynamics in this very tense moment. That's what I'm looking for.
Will it be weird? I'm assuming, actually, I don't know if this is going to be the case, but I assume everyone's going to be wearing face masks as you see them. So you probably won't get that facial reaction sort of stuff, especially if there's something jarring or whatever emotion that someone's trying to display. You probably won't be able to see it in that sense. I'm just thinking out loud.
We'll have to see if they're smizing or something like that.
One would love to see, like the former presidents all kind of gather for a moment, right? Jimmy Carter's not going to be there because of his health, but everybody else is kind of gathering, and the Bushes and the Obamas and the Bidens all kind of embracing one another.
I recall, now that you bring this up, the Michelle Obama, George Bush friendship, right? That everyone talks about. Yeah.
Legitimate friendship that was based on mutual respect and trust of one another. I'd love to see that again. But it's going to be hard in these COVID times. And that just disappoints me, because I honestly think, obviously the history of George W. Bush has been rewritten in the addendum that is Trump. But, it would have been nice to see these living presidents come together.
Would have been. Like, let me just sort of underline, I hadn't even been thinking about COVID, but people are going to be wearing masks. You're going to have troops everywhere. It's just going to be, like, people are going to look back on this inauguration and they're going to say, holy fuck, do you remember 2021? What a shit show. And so, what's your speech going to be?
Carter, I wanted to give you the same opportunity. Do you have a thing you're looking for? Or was that it for you too? The body language, the people, the relationships?
I think that would be amazing to see. I don't really, outside of that and the serious tone, Joe Biden can be a leader, and he will be, I think. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to the right wing and seeing how they respond. Will Fox News continue? Obviously, Judge Jeanine and Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity are continuing down their path. How long can that continue? How long will that continue given the stakes right now?
Let's move it on to our final segment, our overrated and our underrated. Stephen, are you ready?
I am so underrated.
Okay. It's not how this works. I've been doing it a long time. Many Trump staffers, cabinet secretaries have left the administration prior to next Wednesday. So the question, quite simply, Carter, resigning before the end, overrated or underrated?
Overrated. We're not going to remember Hope Hicks. We're not going to remember, you resigned. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you resign with 11 days to go? You are so amazing. Give me a break. You served with the Trumps. You're going to pay for it. And you're going to pay for it for a very, very long time. Trump, Mike Pence is going to get the good gigs compared to what you guys are going to get.
Corey, I'm going to rephrase the question midstream. Resigning so close before the end is technically it, right? Many people resigned before the end out of, spite for what was going on. But resigning so close before the end, overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Not everybody's going to be blacklisted forever. And but some people will be blacklisted forever. And you're going to be looking for the thing that separates you and allows you to at least tell the story of your integrity and your good works and the fact that you were just a, citizen trying to do their best for the nation. God knows there'll be enough people trying to sell that particular brand of snake oil about their time with the Trump administration. They're going to get very good at spinning a yarn here. We're already seeing people having a hard time getting jobs here. So, yeah, if you are working in the Trump administration, get out now. Give yourself at least that one thing you can tell a story about. When people are like, "Wow, you were there." That you're a fucking lunatic. You know, when everybody comes to their senses in 20 years, maybe, oh yes, but I left before the end just as stuff got really bad. People will get blurry on timelines, 5 days, 15 days. It seems significant now because we're sort of looking at when these things happened relative to the inauguration. It's all going to blur together in the future. Get yourself that small thing to latch onto and tell that story.
They're all going to be the anonymous authors of those New York Times op-eds that occurred that the staff are holding him back from even crazier things.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to that for the next forever.
Corey, I'm going to stick with you on this. Voting to impeach a president from your own party or of your own party, overrated or underrated?
The significance is underrated. It's never happened before this week. There's only been a couple of times, Nixon resigned before he could be impeached. He would have had a pile of votes against him. But this is the first time there's been the breaking of party lines for an impeachment vote. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's not insignificant. It's not enough, but it's not insignificant.
Carter, overrated, underrated?
I think it's underrated. I think that, especially given that we haven't yet seen the convictions, people are viewing Trump very differently. And I'm not convinced, actually, that they're voting against their own party. They're voting against Trump's party.
Carter, I'm going to stick with you on this. I talked about Biden announcing his $1.9 trillion federal stimulus package for when he is in office. So the question, quite simply, government stimulus, overrated, underrated?
I think it's underrated. I think at this stage, the spending that has happened from federal governments and governments around the world have kept our economy moving forward and kept a number of people from falling into abject poverty. And it actually just begs the question why we haven't done more to reduce poverty in general, why we waited for a worldwide pandemic before taking action that has just frankly lifted so many people out of almost certain poverty.
Corey, same question to you. Federal stimulus, government stimulus, overrated or underrated?
Overrated. These one shots rather than spending the same amount of money to deal with the problem systematically or systemically. I think I think the reality is here we're blowing a lot of money out the door, but it's a Band-Aid on a gaping wound that needs to be addressed more directly. The fact is there are way too many people living too close to the line who find themselves in very precarious situations, and you just need to look at Europe to see that if you invest in stronger social nets, you don't have to spend this kind of money during these moments of crisis. They're still spending a lot of money, but this is Canada and the United States, and Canada for sure, just blowing money out the door. And that's because people don't have savings. Mm-hmm. Their companies their companies are laying them off at the drop of a hat. There's just not the net there that's there to catch them that should be there. So overrated.
Corey, I'm going to stick with you on this. Ron Klain, Biden's incoming chief of staff, was talking about the type of team that they want to build with their cabinet secretaries and their staffing. He ultimately was criticizing the team of rivals approach, the one made infamous by the Lincoln cabinet and staffers. So the question, team of rivals as a concept, a team where there's dissension amongst the group for the best ideas, overrated or underrated?
My personal preference is underrated. I really like it when there's a good debate around any kind of table, that I get to chair, because that is where you get the most interesting kind of collision and ideas. And if you just have a bunch of people who all have the same worldview, who all agree, that's a shame. That's a real shame.
Adding a little bit more context to what Klain was saying, he was mentioning that in this time they need a team that can work well together, hit the ground running, etc. Be agreed on an action plan. That's the most critical thing in his mind. Carter, same question to you. The team of rivals approach, overrated or underrated?
I think it's underrated. I think the reality is a team that is pushing each other, a team that's bringing different ideas to the table, just performs better. I mean, I had to put up with you two yahoos when we were working together. And
true story, audience. I hired Zain Velji over the objections of Stephen Carter. And I was wrong. I mean, I didn't expect Zain to work out quite as well as he did. I mean, but then again, I had low expectations for you too, Corey. So, this is, but being pushed by your team to do something that you may or may not believe in the moment is the right thing, but they convince you, I think is a wonderful way to run an organization. And I hope that in the sake of unity, they're not losing out on the opportunity for brilliance.
Carter, I'm going to go with the last question, starting with you. Inauguration speeches. We're going to see one in 6 days. Overrated or underrated?
I think they're probably overrated. I mean, there's a few that have broken through. There's a few speeches in general that break through that we remember, and of those few speeches that we remember, generally, we remember a line or two. So I think they're overrated.
Corey, inauguration speeches, overrated or underrated?
Completely overrated. I feel like I could put a gun to either one of your heads and say, give me one line from the Obama speech or one line from the Trump speech that I didn't just give you earlier this episode, and you'd be unable to do it.
Fair enough. I wouldn't be able to do it. Then again, I'm also the guy advocating for impeachment speeches. So we will leave it there. That is You the People for this week. With me, as always, Corey Hogan, Stephen Carter. Make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.